title for this program. And today what we will do is this one. Content analysis for each of the main sections and some practical tips. So these sections include title, abstract, introduction, methodology, results, discussion, conclusions. And today I think I will not be able to cover everything. So it will take about 2 days. So today we will cover probably title, abstract, introduction, hopefully. So let's begin. So scientific writing, contents are there. You already know by now. So these are the typical sections: title, keywords, and then abstract. And in the main body, we have introduction, methodology, results, discussion, conclusions. And towards the end, we have acknowledgement and references. Let's go to the title. You know that title is extremely important, in fact, because most people will read the title first, and if they like it, then they will go and read other sections. So you have to write the title in such a way that this is informative, this is concise, and this is accurate. It reflects the content of the paper. And this is also useful for another practical reason, is that in this digital world, your paper will be indexed by using this title. So each of the words is very important in the title. Now, how to prepare a title? One simple way that we all use is that when we think about the title, we first write down the most important words that will describe our research. And when you look at those words, you try to make a sentence out of these words, and that can be the initial draft for your title. There are some conventions that we follow while writing the title. For instance, we do not use any abbreviations. We avoid chemical formulas in the title if possible. We don't use any commercial name, proprietary name, or some jargons which have some meaning that some people may know. It doesn't give the meaning to the wider audience. And we have to be extremely careful about error in the title, because if there is any error in the title, the reader will have very bad first impression about the author and about the work. So he or she will think that the reader is even not able to write a title. So how can we trust his work? So please be careful about it. And in order to make the title short, there are some relaxation of the grammatical rules. For instance, you can omit the articles a and the, etc. from the title. Although in a normal grammar, you would include them in a normal paragraph, but in the title, you can take out these articles. Also, to make it small and precise, you don't have to write words like studies on effect of this and that. So these do not carry any meaning, really. So you can omit them in the title. Similarly, investigation on. Again, it doesn't add any value to the title. So just try to avoid this. one thing you have to make sure is that you put a lot of effort in writing the title. So that is very important. I show you some example. Look at the first one, which I borrowed from Elsevier. Preliminary observations on the effect of zinc element on anti-corrosion of zinc plating layer. Now this title, if you look at it carefully, there are some repetition and it contains things which are not really meaningful. And if you put a little bit of effort, you can make it more concise and more easy to understand. For instance, the revised title could read as Effect of Zinc on Anti-Corrosion of Zinc Plating Layer. And it is easy to understand, it's clear, and it is shorter in length. Look at the second one. Action of antibiotics on bacteria. What do you think about this title? Anybody can give your opinion? Are you okay with this title? Action of antibiotics on bacteria.
Antibiotics on bacteria. Action on antibiotics on bacteria.
Are you happy with the title? Do you think there is enough information? Is it something missing?
Yes, sir. I really like to know about this.
So you feel that this is not enough. So the way it is written, this is too general. And you cannot have such a title if you want to attract good readership. So if you go to the revised one, then you know what is inside this paper. So it gives you some more detail, which is useful to the reader. So you get some sense of how title should be written. But I will not go through this again for the sake of time. Now we will go through one exercise. This is something that I borrowed from an EU workshop. And this topic is not engineering, but however, I think your science background, you should be able to understand what we need to get out of this topic. Can you please read, all of you, this small paragraph? So we have to write a proper title for this work. And of course, there are some more detail there, but I think we don't need it. Now, if I give you this title, Organic Matter for Sustainable Agriculture in the Tropics, for this particular work, what do you think about this paragraph? Do you think about this title? Do you think it is appropriate? Do you think that you are happy when you read this title, you know what is inside? Can I have some comments?
Sir, Rashid.
Yes, Rashid, please.
We can't get enough specific information from the title.
Okay, very well said. So you think that you don't have enough specific information. So as a reader, we would like to have some specifics. Now, if I give you this one, are you happy? What do you think?
No, it's too elaborated.
Sorry. Can you please repeat?
It is elaborated one.
What do you think? Do you like it?
Not actually.
Not exact. Why? Why you don't like it?
It's lengthy, I guess.
Is it because you have too much information?
Yes, and it's lengthy one.
It's quite lengthy. So now you see that your title must not be too short and general. On the other hand, it must not be very lengthy with so much detail. So you have to strike a balance between these two ends when you write an article, title. Now we will try to write a title using a framework that was suggested. So what you do in this framework, you divide the whole topic into a few subtopics. For instance, the whole thing is divided into 3 sub areas first: what, why, where. And then under where we have a few other subtopics. And we first start writing words which are general while describing this particular area. And then we write words afterwards going to specifics. Now, for what, we can start with general ones. So because this work involves organic matter, which is used in soil for co-mineralization, organic matter. It's more that the reason we use organic matter is for nitrogen fixation, and the purpose is that it will act as manure, this organic matter, as fertilizer, as green manure. And in this green manure, we have this microorganism. The family of the organism is Azolla. And there are 2 specific types of organisms here: Azolla pinnata, Azolla carolingiana. So this is the most specific information that we have under this heading. We can write similar things under why. So the reason why this study is being done is to contribute to sustainability. And this is done through dealing with the soil health, through improving the soil health. And it involves agrochemicals like pesticides, herbicides, and these pesticides and herbicides needs mineralization. And the specific types of pesticide and herbicides that are used are propanil and alachlor. Then we go to the next one. So where is our system is crop. So it's a rice wheat crop family of crops, and under which we are dealing with rice. And it's not any rice, it's lowland rice. And the scientific name being Oryza sativa trichum aestivum is the specific form. We go to the next one. We are dealing with soils. So it's a flooded soil, and the specific name of this soil is insectisol. And another specific variety is tropical, which is given in the rest of the section. As for the area, this is in Asian region, South Asia, in Bangladesh, in Nangara, in the northern Bangladesh, a village called Nangara. Now, this is the main information, the words that we need in order to formulate a title. As you understood, we cannot be very specific, we cannot be very general. So we have to strike a balance, and this balance will come through experience. So you need to decide which is the right. For instance, if we choose this Azolla too specific, not too general, as well as a microorganism that is involved. Then here we used this herbicide mineralization. We use rice, we use flooded soil, and we go up to Bangladesh. We don't go to any specific village. And by using all these, and also taking into consideration that our words should be as general as permissible, as specific as required. In fact, it should be permissible. Anyway, as specific as required. Then let's try to write title. Effect of Azolla on the mineralization of herbicides in a flooded dry soil of Bangladesh. Now, what is your opinion about this? Compared with the last two that we have seen, are you happy with this?
Yes, sir.
So it reflects the content, and you have enough information as a reader to be comfortable about this. So this is how you strike a balance. Now, of course, you will not be able to write this kind of scheme for every paper, but once you do that for the first few exercises, then it will come automatically to your brain. And you should be able to write a good title if you follow this principle. And this kind of analysis is also very important because it will help you to write keywords and also the introduction. Now, as for the keywords, these are required in many of the journals, and these are used for search purposes. So these are quite critical because we want to have as many audiences coming to our paper as possible. And if we don't use the right keywords, they will not be able to locate our paper. So it's very important. Now, the keywords, the characteristics are that they have to be more specific. They have to be more specific than the title. And of course, they have to reflect the content of the paper. In general, as we mentioned, that it has to be specific. Just to give you an example, let's say you are writing a paper for a journal whose title is Soil Biology and Biochemistry. In such a case, if you have soil as a keyword in your paper, this is redundant because everybody knows that you are writing for a journal on soil, so your work must be on soil. So you don't write this kind of general words here. You have to be more specific. Now we go back to our old scheme. So our principle is that keywords have to be more specific. In fact, it has to be more specific than the title. So this framework that we have prepared, I think it will help us. So you go more specific than the word that you used in the title, and these words are shown in blue color. So these words with blue color can make a very good list of your keywords, and that's what we have done. Let me hide this. So Azolla pinnata, Azolla carolingiana, propanil oryza sativa, insecticide. So these are the proper keywords because it covers more detail than the abstract. So your abstract, detail than the title. So your title and your keywords together, they cover quite a wide space. So anybody who is using keywords which falls into this space, so they will be able to capture your paper and they will find you easily. This scheme is also useful for writing your introduction. In the introduction, we use words which are more general, because introduction, we will see that it starts with general terms and goes to specific. That means the words that are above the title words that we identified last time, and these are shown in red color. So these words will be useful for you to write your introduction. So I find this scheme quite useful, particularly for the beginner, to design their title, their abstract, and the introduction by this very simple analysis. Our next section is abstract. So once the reader is happy with the title, they think that they understand what is inside, and they know that this is useful for them, so they will now read the abstract. So that is the next thing. So we need to attract the readers into our paper. So the abstract is a kind of advertisement to your paper. So it must be interesting to the reader. Otherwise, the reader will not go into any detail. It has to be accurate to show the content, and it has to be as brief as possible, because if it is too lengthy, then people may lose interest and go to another paper. So these are the few things that you need to keep in mind when you design and write your abstract. There are two types of abstract, broadly speaking. One type is called informative abstract. So in this kind of abstract, the key themes and the purpose of the paper are highlighted. The methods used are shown. The key findings are written down clearly, and the major conclusion or implications are also presented. We have another type, which is called descriptive abstract. In the descriptive abstract, we identify the purpose of the paper. Then we describe the major areas that will be covered under the paper. Now, these two particular type of abstracts have very specific purpose. The first type, which is informative abstract, are used for research papers. And if you notice, you will find that this is actually written in the form of IMRAD. You have the introduction, where you outline the purpose of the paper. Then you have methods, and then you have key findings, which is a result, and then major conclusions or implications, which is somehow linked to the discussion. The second type is suitable for review paper. So when the paper that you have written is based on the research results described in the literature, we call it a review paper. So in the review paper, this kind of descriptive abstract are used. Now, I already mentioned that basically a good abstract will have all the elements of IMRAD. So it will have introduction, it will have method, it will have results and discussion or conclusion. So you have to squeeze out the juice out of your paper, which is about 6 pages, 7, 8 pages, and you have to put it into a paragraph, which is about, let's say, 250 to 300 words. And writing a good abstract is an art. It's not easy. It's difficult. It takes some practice. And these are the convention in abstract. Normally, we don't have any figure, no figure, no table. We don't put any references in the abstract. We try to avoid abbreviations, equations, and symbols. And we make the sentences small. And this is not only true for abstract. In fact, it's true for any scientific communication. As engineer, we will have to write a lot of different types of reports, etc. And one basic principle in scientific writing is that we make the sentences small, and we'll talk about it later on. The abstract is a short paragraph typically 250 words, but it will depend on the journal. Some journals will have their own specifications and you have to follow. In some journals, it could be even just 150 words. We write it in one paragraph. And since the space is so short, you cannot give too many things. So you have to focus, you have to be selective, and you have to give only the essential ideas and the most critical ideas. And if there is any number and any quantitative information, so you give those in the abstract. There is no hard and fast rule how much the introduction in the abstract should take up, how much other sections should take up. But this is the town rule. So for instance, introduction should occupy 25% of the pages in the, 25% of the space or words in the abstract, methods about 25%, results about 35%, and then discussion about 15%. So this is just some rough estimates. Now, if your paper contains introduction, which occupies 75% of the pages of the space, and the rest occupies only 25%, this is a very bad abstract. It's not balanced at all. So you have to be careful. So after you have written your abstract, you have to see how much words you have spent for each of those sections. And again, these are quite arbitrary. So if it is 27%, I think it doesn't make much difference. If it is 23%, if instead of 35, it is 38%. So these are all okay. If it is, let's say, 10%, I think that is fine. But it shouldn't have this much imbalance. So that is the thing that I want to emphasize. This is one abstract. I'm not sure if I will spend some time reading this. But please read this yourself. And each color represents one section. Introduction in blue, method in probably green, results in yellow, discussion kind of brick red color. So in my opinion, it's a very well written abstract. It's almost like a poem, piece of poetry. So it has all the sections written in a very well manner in such a small space. This is another example of an IMRAD abstract. Of course, these words are slightly different, but this is basically discussion. This is basically introduction. So if you read it quickly, so you get a sense of how an abstract is written by combining all these sections in a balanced manner. Please read yourself. Okay. Now, some journal editors are quite concerned because some authors cannot write an abstract in the balanced way that I showed you. So in order to make sure that such errors do not happen, so they gave you a prescription. So they ask you that you have to write your abstract under these sections. Like you first write the purpose of the study, how, methodology, why, how, and the result, what you have found, and the conclusion or the main meaning of it, which is that's equivalent to some discussion. So they will give you exactly this format, and you have to write under each section. For instance, if you publish in any journal published by IMRAD Publishing, so their abstract will be in this form. So they will give you these 4 subheadings in the abstract, and you have to fill in these subheadings. So they just want to make sure that you touched upon each of those important subheadings. Otherwise, sometimes some authors will miss some of them, which they don't want. In some journals nowadays, they will also ask you to draw some graphical abstract. So you have to use your artistic sense to prepare this graphical abstract and submit. So you can use wide-ranging colors as well. One other type of abstract, which is also called extended abstract. This kind of abstract is used mainly in conference proceedings, because in some scientific conferences, they do not publish the full-length paper, but they publish, let's say, 1 page or 1.5 page or 2 pages from the paper. And for that reason, they will ask you to submit this extended abstract, and they will give you the detailed specification. They may allow you to write, to include some 1 or 2 illustrations or graphical information. They may allow you to write down a few references, which is usually not present in a typical abstract. But this extended abstract may allow you to do that. And these are mainly used for conference papers. Now, I have one case study on abstract, which I will show you now, and I will invite your suggestion, your comments on the abstract. Now, let me show you. One abstract. So I will show you this part by part. You just read it and don't worry about the grammatical mistake. You look at the general quality of the abstract. Just forget for the time being about the grammatical mistakes. So please read the abstract, then I will ask you a question. Okay, now I want an opinion from you. Who can give me? Are you there? Are you all there? Raisa?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, but I cannot find that thing anyway. Where is it? So I cannot see your names. So that is the. Anyway, I want to have your opinion. What do you think about this abstract? Who can tell me? So you have seen how a good abstract should look like. You know what are the requirements of a good abstract. Now, what do you think about this? Does it follow that rule?
Yes, sir. It followed.
Okay, so I have one answer. Yes, it followed. And any other answer? Any other answer? I want to ask you specifically, but I want one more answer.
Sir,
Yes, who is it?
Sir Rashid.
Rashid, yes.
There are some confusing overlap here. Broad and specific. Maybe in abstract, we don't need the specific methodology, whole methodology. So it almost half of the abstract. Then there is some confusion about the specific conclusion and the process. I can't find specific conclusion, but it's overlapped with the methodology. So, and the introduction is almost perfect. There are one-line introduction, but there are overlap between the methodology. This is too broad, and with the conclusion, there are overlap.
Okay, thank you very much, Rashid. I think you have pointed out a lot of things. So you are not happy with this abstract, that I can guess. Is it right? Rashid?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. So this abstract has a number of drawbacks that Rashid has identified. I will start from the beginning. Introduction. So there is practically no introduction. It just starts telling what it does, but there is no introduction to the topic, no general thing that is described, why it is important, why this area needs attention. These sort of things are not there. Number two, in the IMRAD format, you have to have this differentiation between different sections. So you have to write the introduction first, then you have to write the methodology. You finish it there, you write results, and then you go to discussion or implication. But here, what the writer does, he or she, I think it's a he, yes. He mixed results and discussion alternately. So he first writes the result and then gives the discussion. Sorry, methodology and then discussion, results. Again, methodology and then result. And this is a very confusing flow. So readers will not be able to understand this easily. They may have to read a few times. And of course, the implication is there in the last sentence, but this is a confusing abstract. One of the reasons being that they mixed up different sections together. And this is not a good practice. Okay, so let's go back. Our next section is introduction. So the purpose of the introduction, that we put the paper in a context. We give the background of the work. So that is the first thing. And in doing so, we state what are the things that have been done in that particular area. So we give the current status of the topic. And then we try to formulate the problem that we are going to solve. We also have to give the justification of the work, the rationale of the work. We have to provide the value of the work, the significance, why this work is important, who will benefit, and what will the benefit be. Then we have to give what our paper is contributing, what is the new thing it is coming up with, and what is the aim of the paper, what is the hypothesis that we are assuming to be true, and then define our problem. So these are the sort of information that we have to include in the introduction in a logical manner so that it's easy for the readers to read. While writing the introduction, we can give some historical context also, that is possible, if that is relevant. And when we give the past, analysis of the past, then we have to be selective. This is a paper, but the length of manuscript pages, can you remember what is the number of manuscript pages for introduction? We discussed it yesterday. Is it about 1.5 page, if you remember? Maximum 2 manuscript pages. So it's a small section, relatively small. So we cannot put everything. That is why we have to be selective in including what sort of material we'll discuss, what papers we will discuss in that introduction. And when somebody have done some work in the past, we have to give due credit. We have to recognize what they have done. If some of the earlier work are not so well, are not so good, then we can criticize the earlier work. So what are the deficiencies in the earlier work? What were the problems? However, we do it in a respectful manner without attacking any author. So we just criticize the work, not the creator of the work. So that is the norm in our field. We respect our fellow scientists. And in the introduction, we have to cite only most trustable sources like peer-reviewed papers in a journal or some review papers. We do not typically cite anything from the internet or anything that is not peer-reviewed. In the introduction, we of course have to highlight what is new in our work. This is very important. And in some cases, you can also write down a little bit of description about the organization of the paper, which section will come first, which section second. That's possible. Some author gives them. So in short, our introduction will look like this. We start with general background to put things into context, and then we go to specific topic. We give the scientific information collected from the peer-reviewed paper, describing what others have done, and then telling what is missing in those papers, what is the problem, and then we describe our objectives. And towards the end, we can also write outline of the paper if we want to. But we have to follow this general format in writing our introduction. It can be 1 to 2 manuscript pages. And you have to pay a lot of attention, because once the editor likes your title, then he will read the abstract and then he will read the introduction. Now in the introduction, if he finds it not so clear, if he finds it that there is no novelty, there is no new thing that you have highlighted, then he may stop there. He may not go any further and then reject your paper. This happens very often. So this is the place where you have to put a lot of attention so that the readers, the editors do not lose interest in this point. So you need to highlight this particular thing. What is new? So they will ask you this question all the time. because you are creating new knowledge. If you write your paper giving the old knowledge that is known already, then nobody will be interested. So you have to reveal in a very clear way what is new in your work. So it could be a new experimental approach. It could be new data. It could be a new model that you have described, or even a new interpretation, which was not found in the literature before. So you develop this new interpretation. So these are the things that you have to write very clearly in the introduction, particularly towards the end, after you have given the general background and the specific topics. So Elsevier is telling you this, the same thing that I just described. So you have to highlight the problem. And if there is any existing solution, then you have to tell why you need to perform the test that you have carried out to come up with another solution. What is the benefit of your solution? And you cannot hide things nowadays. If there somebody have already worked in your area, you have to mention them, you have to cite them, and then you have to tell them what are the drawbacks in their work and why you need to do your research. So that has to be very clear. The abstract should be written in a way that it is consistent with the requirement and scope of the journal. So you may go through the journal to have some idea how, what are the type of information they publish and how they present those in the paper. Some students think that they put too many citations, references, and that is good, but which is not true. So the references have to be selective and very relevant. You don't have to cite too many references for your paper to be published. The only thing you need is quality of your paper. And it has to be concise. Don't make it lengthy. And the introduction should give the whole picture first. So what is the background? What is the specific field that you are dealing with? What is the problem for which no answer is there? Or for which, if there is any answer, then why you need to come up with your answer? So you have to give all this first. And do not mix your results and discussion and conclusion in the introduction. Some students, being very enthusiastic, they already start talking about results, discussion, etc. in the abstract, which is not necessary because you have separate sections for each of them. Also, some students claim this kind of big thing. So I have achieved this for the first time, first ever. This kind of words are not liked by the editors. You just plainly tell what you have done, what you have found. And if it is new, then the reader will understand. So an educated reader will easily understand the value of your work. So you don't have to do this kind of claim like novel, first time, etc. So these are the general information we have to give in the introduction. There is no one formula fits all type of format for an abstract or for an introduction, but I'll show you a couple of one format. If you think about your introduction in this manner, then you'll be able to write a decent introduction. Now, in this introduction, they call it, there are 3 moves, move 1, move 2, and move 3. In the move 1, you first establish a territory, which means that you describe the existing work that has been done already. And then you create a gap. Then you tell that there is a problem with the existing work. Something is missing or something is wrong, something is problematic, and this needs to be corrected. And then you tell that your work will fill that gap. You tell that you come up with new data that will solve that problem, or you have come up with a new solution which is far better than the existing solution, and so on. So this should be your overall argument. And if it is missing in your introduction, then you will be in problem in convincing the editor. And if you write it in this way, then novelty will be very clear. So what is new in your work? So reader will be understanding it in an easy manner. So I show you some example of this type of tactics. So the first move is establish your research territory, which means that you describe the state of the knowledge, the latest knowledge in the research that is available in literature. And then under this main move, you can have sub moves. For instance, you show first that the research area is very important, but still there are some problems remaining in that research area. And you introduce some previous research results that is already available. So this way you create a territory, you create your own space there that I have read and I have found out this. And some of the sample languages are shown. For instance, in submove 1, you could show evidence suggests that X is among the most important factor, and so on and so forth. About type B, about the review. So data from several studies suggest that extensive research has this and this. So these are the type of typical language that you may use to describe the first move, move 1. In the second move, you establish a niche, which means that you create a gap. You show what is missing. So establish the motivation for the study. So this is also called the motivation for the study. So which describes what is missing and why it is important. So under this, you could have one or more of these sub-moves. For instance, claim that something is wrong in the previous research. But of course, you have to be very carefully, you have to be looking at the data in a very critical manner, and then you establish that this is wrong. Or you can say that something is missing. The full information that is required is not there. So these are the things that you mentioned here when you establish a niche. And the type of language is Smith's analysis does not take into account. So you tell what is missing. So these are the sort of language you will be using for establishing a niche. In the third move, you occupy the niche. You tell how you solve this issue. So how your research will fill the gap. And in this section, you have to tell the purpose of the paper and the nature of the work that you are doing. You may explain what is the hypothesis of the research question that you are seeking to answer. You may also share some findings very briefly. You can also give the value of your work or significance of your work. And this is how you do it. The purpose of this investigation is to do this and that. We investigate the following research. And then you mention this this research provides new insights into. So, sorry. This is how you occupy your niche. There are a few other examples, very similar. So significance and status quo, which is the most recent work up to the work that has been done up to most recent time. And then you create a gap. However, something is missing. And then you fill the gap. We report the results in a randomized way, etc. And of course, it's shown in a very tiny space, but in your case, when you write your research paper, you have about 1.5 pages to 2 pages. Then you can elaborate on each section to make it convincing. I think I just take this out. Now, let me just tell you one thing, and I will stop here because we are you willing to continue a few more minutes, because we have lost, I think, 5-6 minutes. Is it all right?
Yes, sir. No problem.
Okay, then probably I will use this discussion. We will have this discussion and then one case study, and then we will stop. So now I would like to think, I would like you to think for a moment or two, and then tell me the difference between abstract and introduction. Just think about it. Take a piece of paper and then write some points about the abstract and introduction. Okay, so who can give me a few points about the difference between abstract and introduction?
Sir, I'm Raisa.
Yes, I think you have another person beside you, so somebody has to switch off.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
So some basic points I have noted down. Their basic points are in introduction, I have to say that why I want to go on a research with this topic, why I need it, why our environment or why our social life need it, and from that, what kind of beneficial we can get, and the applications we can get from it. And abstract will give, we have to give abstract the points like the methods, the results, and the process, and methods, the same thing, though, and the basic applications. Sorry, sir, for the sound. Sir, that's all.
okay, thank you very much. Right, anybody else would like to contribute? Yes. Who is it?
About abstract, say it's a short convincing discussion about the whole paper, about my purpose of the research, about my methodology, about my results. I need to put all the things in a convincing, concise manner in the abstract. On the other hand, for introduction, I would put the existing research what people have done to date now, and what are the problems of those researchers, or where is the void, or what is the research gap? I need to identify that, and I will describe that, and after that I will clearly denote that my contribution is where is my novelty about my, it can be my methodological novelty, or my any significant improved result that should be noted in the introduction.
Okay, all right, thank you all very much. So if I summarize once again what you have told and what I have told, so the introduction should be like inverted triangle. We start from the general background, then we go to specific, and then we go to the main objective. In this process, we have to highlight what is the scientific problem that we are going to solve. What is the benefit of this solution? Or what is the significance of this solution? What is novelty? What is new here? So these sort of things should be elaborated in the introduction. It's about 1.5 to 2 pages, let's say, something like this, 2 manuscript pages. On the other hand, a well-balanced abstract will have introduction, will have methodology, will have results, and will have discussion as well. So it's in the IMRAD format. Now, here you have space which is very, very tiny. So the introduction that you have here, you have to write it down in 1 or 2 sentences in the introduction in abstract. Then you have to write down methodology, results, and discussion. And this section is not there in the introduction. So introduction will now have a different information that we have. So these are the main differences between abstract and introduction. Is it clear? So let's move ahead. So this is the last thing we will do now. A case study on introduction. I will show you one introduction and you have to give me your feedback on that introduction. Let me try to find them. So again, this may not be in your area, but I think you can understand what is written. So please read for yourself. And I will ask you, what are the drawbacks of this introduction? And this is one part. After you finish it, I will go to the next section. The next part. The next part, you read it okay. So I now want your opinion. Are you okay with this introduction? Do you understand everything? Do you see that this is written in a logical way and everything is there? Who will start first with the answer?
Sir, Rashid,
Yes, Rashid.
sir, the last page, I would mention the last page first.
Yes.
When we read a technical paper, we already have done it, but it's almost like not interaction. It's like I say a proposal. So that's the problem. This could be done. There are objectives, but there are not. There eventually
Okay.
is not done.
Yeah, this format, you just ignore the format. So let's ignore this because I borrowed it. Just look at the introduction.
There
The
are
introduction.
problems in first page. There are
Yes, Rashid.
is not there with the first page. The specific search on the corrosion and to find the solution of environment. But the background he suggested is not the specifically related to the his research. So there are missing background of his research, which is the most probable need of a interaction. So he suggests a background of total system, but not the research background of the domain of his research of environmental pollution or corrosion system. So he haven't done the previous specific research background.
Okay, very good, Rashid. Now I want another opinion. Who can give me? The earlier you give me, I will let you go earlier. Give me one more point. Why everybody is afraid. Just give me your opinion. Don't worry. Yes. Yes.
In this introduction, aluminum oxide and titanium oxide, why the research about this aluminum oxide and titanium oxide, what are the research, what people have done before is not specifically mentioned. And where is the research gap? It is not clear.
Excellent. Excellent. I think you have found it. You have got it. So what this write-up describes, it starts with general, which is fine. It gives the general area. What is the importance of this research is given. What is the implication of not working in this area is given. Then he talks about working on this particular material, which is in the form of coating. But he doesn't tell anything about the existing work published in this area. And that is a major drawback. So you cannot write a good paper, you cannot do a good work by doing that. You need to explore and see what has been done already in this area. And from there, you need to define the research problem. What is the scientific information that is missing that you need to add to the literature? I think you got the point. And this is a very, very common mistake. And we all do this when we write down our paper or proposal for the first time. And then we have to read and revise and reread in order to find this kind of major mistake. And then we have to rectify this. So graphically speaking, a good abstract, good introduction will have very small flow. So you have inverted triangle from general to specific to more specific and so on. But if you characterize this paper, it will look like this. It gives you some good information about the general topics. And then you talks about the objectives very specific, this particular type of coating material, but it doesn't give any information about the coating material itself. So this area is totally vacant, and you cannot have a good introduction like this. You must fill in this area in order to justify your work, in order to justify the need for this work. So that is what is missing. With this, I think I will stop. We will see you tomorrow.